Hello everybody, this is Frogman. Welcome back to Satisfactory. We've done a little bit of work messing around in the factory in the last couple episodes, as well as going out and getting a few hard drives so that we can get a couple of really good recipes finally. So before we touch on what we're going to do today, because I have made a decision as to what we're going to do, we have realized that we needed to do a couple of other extra things. So I did go ahead and double down on a little bit more of production. I don't know if you guys saw this. I forget if I said it in the last episode. It's been a week or two since I've recorded, so we're gonna go ahead and knock this out real fast. I did go ahead and double down on the production of the, what are these things called over here, brain? Come on. The adaptive control units, so that we can make almost 2 of the assembly director system director thingies per minute, which meant that I had to double on a couple of other things as well as double over there. So we're now making quite a bit of material for various things. We've actually used up quite a bit of these heavy modular frames. They're kind of expensive, and they're really, they're kind of painful to make, but I mean, mainly because they're slow. I think we have the best of the recipes that we're currently at this point that we can do. So I did grab a whole bunch of hard drives. Now the hard drives we were intending to go get, I went back and got a whole bunch more of them. I actually ran around through the pink forest and a couple of other areas, and I got a bunch of stuff. So I'm gonna have to remember exactly which ones we did get, but let's just do it this way. I need, what is it? I believe is what I was looking for. So in here is the quickest, easiest way to find some of these things. We did get a few more recipes, I believe, but I think we've already had that set up, at least on this end of it. We needed to get some of the batteries, which we did get the batteries right off the bat. That was something that I think we got right off the bat. I did get the one of these that I wanted. I think we already had seen this one as well. The reason why I want one of these, or different one of these, is because there is a motor recipe for this that is considerably, well, it's not considerably better, but it really, this part right here goes into these, depending on how you want to work with that. So what that does is you can take the rotors, the stators, and make a bunch of the electromagnetic control rods, and instead of using 2 separate lines, you can get rid of this line, so you can shove all of these into your electromagnetic control rods, put these into these, which then makes a decent amount of motors. Now it's right there, it shows. It is the same as the crystal motor, which that means you have to put in rotors and all those kinds of things. But it's a pretty good way of making those kinds of things. So it's another things we're going to have to look at as far as those go. There was some other things with nuclear that I think we got. I got an encased uranium cell. Those we got the secondary one. Again, not having to mess with fluids in this game is an amazing kind of thing. Yes, this will require us to add in silica, but it's going to be one of those kinds of things that we may have going ahead and going this direction when and if we ever get to that point. This is the same kind of deal. We're not going to fool with these. We're not going to fool with any of the nuclear stuff until after we do a couple of other things. I did get this recipe, which this recipe, again, it sucks that it uses, a fluid, but it's not a fluid so much as it is a gas. It also makes a little bit more stuff, and this is another one of those things that I want to be doing versus some of these other things. Now, we may do this one, we may not, just depends. Heat sinks, I believe we already had this one. If not, this is still another better recipe. You get a lot more for it. We're going to have to play with these as we go. Batteries, we got this last episode, which was amazing, and I think radio control units, we got another one. Although I think we're using this recipe right here. We may go to this. I know I say I kind of want to stay away from the high-speed connectors, because you can kind of, there's several parts where if you can just get rid of a specific thing, then, not having to make it at all. The only reason why we're making high-speed connectors right now is because we're making the supercomputers, and once we do a little bit of other things, I will stop making high-speed connectors altogether, because there's really no need for them. We'll just make a big pile of stuff for them, and we can either make them this way, or we can make them, well, the supercomputers, we can make them this way. These are just going to be later on kinds of things. We'll be ending up stuffing those things into something eventually, but we're going to have to kind of play with that as we go. So that's enough of that. No, don't do that. I really need to go get the stupid coffee cup or some kind of other thing. I know I'm not the person that does that kind of stuff, because it's just another inventory slot that I don't like wasting. So what we're going to do today is, part of this is looking towards batteries and looking towards crystal oscillators. We need to be making a lot more plastic and a lot more rubber. Just all the way around, we need to make a lot more plastic and a lot more rubber. So what I want to do is we're going to go ahead and upgrade the system over there so that we can make roughly 1,600 plastic and rubber per minute. Today we're going to work on about half of that between the two of them. They're actually going to be a little bit more than that, but what we're going to do is we're going to use the little thing that I kind of touched on last episode, which is a recipe we've had for a little while, which is over here. Let's go down here. These two recipes right here, along with whatever comes with this. So this is what's known as the alternate recycled plastic and alternate recycled rubber. Basically what you do is you take 30, you should say, we'll just say it like this. You take 6 plastic, 6 fuel, and you mix them together and you get 12 rubber. Well, you do that with both of these. What's interesting about that is that will just double whatever the input is. However, you have to use half of the input generally. Generally, you're going to have to use half of the input from one side to feed the other. Now, we're going to use a little bit of we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of stuff with those two, but essentially what you're going to do is, because of the fact that we can double our fuel production right here from whatever we're going to get out of, I think it's this one down here. So whatever we put in here, we're going to add 10% or 15% or whatever that number is. I'm not into the mood right now. My math brain is not here. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to put in 30 crude oil. We're going to do 40 heavy oil residue. We're just going to give it a little bit more. We've already messed with this when we did our fuel production system. We're then going to take that and we're going to do this time. Now, this is where I know that they designed this to do specific functions with this versus that instead of this versus one of these. So we'll just grab one of these real quick. The reason why I say that is if you do the alternate diluted packaged fuel, this is a 30 into a 60. Well, 40 doesn't divide into 30, or 30 doesn't divide into 40 very well. You have to use a kind of an ugly number, and you end up with those thirds and sixes that I don't care about. Let me go back over here so that I don't forget what we were doing. I think this is this one. Whatever, doesn't really matter. We don't care. This is when you know that they intended this process to be used with the blender, because it goes 40 into 50, and you go, well, that's terrible. Well, not necessarily, because if you take 600 oil and you multiply 600, well, you take 600 oil and you turn it into 800 heavy oil residue. Heavy oil residue turns into, well, it does the same number we're already doing, 1,600 fuel. Well, this is 16 of these things. It's an even number here. It's an even number there. And the only time it gets ugly is when we start talking about these things. So that's even so much as when you start fooling around with the other thing that we're going to do, which is we're going to do the polymer resin into plastic and rubber. These equate to 8 more of these from that process. So it'll be 20 of these, 8 for the polymer resin recipes, 16 of these, and then something like 82 of those to do all of the fun stuff. When we're done, if I just chose, now this is the silly thing, if I just chose to make, say, rubber, what I would do is I would take that 82, I'd cut it in half, and I'd make rubber with it. Then I'd take the other half of that 82, and I'd take all the rubber that I'm making with that and feed it into, well, actually, it's not even half. It's more like a quarter, but whatever. You feed the rubber back into the other ones on the other side, or the other recipes over here. I think we have this already set up. So, like, say we're making plastic. You take all of that rubber that you're making, you're cramming it into a whole bunch more of these, and then it'll make just an ungodly amount of plastic. So it's kind of a fun little recipe. It's a lot of back and forth kind of recycling. It does require a little bit of thought to make it work. Now, there's this point here where this little process right here, this is only about 400 polymer resin. 400 polymer resin, depending on how much paint you want to play with, is something you could just feed into an item sink. We're going to use it to seed the system. So this first project we're going to do, we're just going to take one of those pure oil nodes over there. We're going to crank it up to max. We're using our power shards so that we can get 600 oil per minute. We're going to feed it into 20 of these, which is going to then waterfall upward, I guess. So we're just going to kind of play around with it until we get to work. I have an idea what I want to do as far as the design. It should look reasonably well, but we're going to, by the time we're done, have something like 800 and 80 plastic and rubber per minute with the first oil node we're going to play with. Now, I want to make 800 between the two of them right now so that we can keep feeding things. But eventually we may just go ahead and say, well, one's going to be all rubber and one's going to be all plastic. But it's easier to do the math this way than it is to try to sit here and figure out how to push things back and forth. So if you're going to do it, just do it for both of them. You can always just cram the stuff into an item sink. So I am going to get rid of all of you gentlemen because we need you. And we're going to go over there and we're going to go play. So I'll see you guys once we get over there. I had to come back and get a whole bunch of concrete because, you know, concrete be the thing that concrete be. So let's go on. Okay, should be the last couple of rows of refineries. We're going to overbuild them a little bit, but we're going to have to underclock one, I believe. So 7. And then you are going to go like where? Right there. And I should have just enough stuff to do it all. Bang. All right, cool. That should be everything we need. Now, this is going to be the mess. This is going to be what we're going to do. Or at least this is how it's going to look for the time being. So let me come up here and we'll sit down. So the train track, of course, is right there. Train station is just going to come right into the center. It's a little off center right now because of how that works. I will probably bring that out, or I'll probably do something else with it, but we're going to base it all off of the center of the train station, which means underneath on the bottom, everything that we need to do is going to be starting down here. So we're going to start with the oil coming in into all of these refineries on the bottom. All 20 of them on the bottom are where the oil is going to come in and be turned into the heavy oil residue and the polymer resin. The heavy oil residue is going to go up a level and go into all of these blenders, which are on both sides, and they are going to get mixed with a little bit of water there that will turn them into the fuel that will then go into all of the refineries on both sides. There's going to be an awful lot of belting in this, but I really don't feel like stacking things on top of each other. I kind of wanted to do something like this. The reason why I kind of want to do something like this is if this works out the way that I figure it should work out, then we can just basically take this entire thing and flip it and put it out there, and it should clear all that rock. It'll give us place on both sides to get the water for all of this stuff, and then we should be able to do at least 2 of those pure oil nodes over there. Now, I have left all of the other ones over there, at least the other refineries and everything that we had set up originally, and I may just leave that for base, at least so that base can kind of do what base needs to do. For now, I did go and do a little bit of work. We did go ahead, like I said, I don't want to kind of get too sidetracked. Can I get up enough so that you can actually see? I shut off the coal generators over there that were running the petroleum coke, because what I did was I turned the refineries that were making the petroleum coke into making fuel using the residual oil, and then we're taking that fuel and we're kind of doing again a little bit more recirculatory stuff over there, so that's now making about 350 plastic and rubber per minute versus the 270 or whatever that it was making before. I forget what the number is exactly, but it's just that shut all that stuff off, so we did lose a little bit of power. So I did slap down about another 80 or so of the fuel generators, so that we can kind of do a few things elsewise. Anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and kind of finish belting this mess in, plumbing it in. I still have to add a bunch of water extractors per both sides because these things are hungry for water. I think every one of them wants 100, so that's going to be, you know, 800 water right there, 400. That's why I'm splitting it into groups. It's kind of, this is one of those things. This is a tile, so there's 5 refineries, 4 blenders, and 13 or 14 refineries up there, plus the 4 out here, plus 2 awesome sinks. So I am going to want to awesome sink excess stuff that comes off of these, because this will we basically, this is that point where if you're going to utilize the polymerized, wherever the polymer resin or whatever that stuff is, if you're going to utilize it, you need to make sure that you have a place to put the output in case the system backs up. Because if this whole system shuts off, which it's going to when these bins over here are full, then this could cause a problem right there to the point where this won't ever run again. Now, it shouldn't, based on how I have it figured out in my head, because what we're going to do, hello autosave, is we're going to take the output from here. This is going to be the priority going into those bins, but it's also going to be used to seed those. So technically all we should have to do when we get to that point is I should just have to well, plumb it, belt it, wire it, turn it on, and in an hour or so, it should be pumping out a considerable amount of rubber and plastic. And the reason I say in an hour or so is because it's going to have to backfill. We're going to use these to seed these. These are going to go, like say, this is going to make some plastic that's going to then go up the center over here, split evenly between both of these, which is going to suck because I'm going to have to basically belt balance a whole bunch of stuff and bring a whole bunch. It's going to be an utter nightmare for the belts because there's going to be so much distance between the two that I kind of wished I had just stacked it on top of this, but because of the amount of those, it's just the way it's going to be. The belt basically is plastic's going to come in from here, go over here. It's going to go into these. These are going to make rubber. The rubber is then going to flow over to there until it backfills all of those, which is then going to come in here and go into this thing. Plastic's going to come out of here again, like say right here. This is going to make rubber. That's going to join the rubber heading that direction, which will then backfill all of those. These will make the plastic. Will then come over here and backfill to here. So we'll have some smart splitters right here that will decide when it's time to start putting things into containers, storage containers, and into the train station. Otherwise, it's just going to fill both sides before it's done. But I've got a whole lot of belting and a whole lot of to do. I think the water extractors are going to kind of go right out here and then like over in that area. And I still think we'll probably do a little bit more length on these, but we should be good to figure out the rest of this. So I'll see you guys all when we get ready to turn it on, unless there's some silliness that I think we need to discuss. That should be maybe enough to finish the job. Nice side note, though, up there, if you notice our assembly directors, we're over halfway done with them finally. It tells you how long I've been playing. Anyway, back to work. Well, after several hours of goofing around and making things happen, I think we finally got it all wired, plumbed, and kind of somewhat belted into a commonsensical kind of thing. So, as we kind of went, as I stated a little bit in the beginning there, that we were going to basically kind of chunk this up into 4 pieces to make this kind of work, plus the starter that's out there. So this is a slice right here. That, of course, is a slice right there, and then on so on and so on down the road and away from everything else. So we're going to grab the water from out there for both sides for here, and then for the water for those 8, it's just being picked up from right over there. Again, this is a third of what we can do over here with the oil that we have. This, I'm just going to put this out right now. A third of it, because there's still another pure node over there that can do 600, and there's 2 normal nodes that when, power sharded up and then tied together in the same pipe can do 600. So we can make an awful lot of rubber and plastic over here, which is the reasoning why we started over here in the first place. So the fun part is going to be that this should be a self-starting system. It should just, well, work. Now, let's go down through the little bit of the mess and we'll kind of explain it really quickly. So we'll just take this side, understanding that this side is identical aside from the stuff that we're going to be producing out of it. So we have 10 refineries right here that are going to make heavy oil residue and polymer resin. So come down here and look at this. Polymer resin, heavy oil residue. The heavy oil residue is going to be pumped upwards to these blenders, and these blenders are going to take the heavy oil residue and some water, which we already have set up, and turn that into diluted fuel, basically, is what's going to happen. That is then going to be sent up to these refiners that are going to be waiting patiently for their plastic or rubber, whichever one it is, and once they get that, they will start producing. Now, this is just to illustrate something here. There's going to be a full 780 belt going into all of these refineries on both sides, or pretty stinking close to a full 780 belt. The numbers are 13. There's actually 14. It's that one thing that I really hate. Once again, it's like 13 and a third. So we're just going to run 14. I'm not even going to worry about overclocking them. I'm not going to worry. The math up till right here, the math up until right here you know, from here, that direction is easy. All that stuff, all that math works. Once it comes up here, it's like, no, we're going to go back to being silly again and doing thirds and sixes, which just don't work when you're doing decimal points. It causes problems with math later on. It did work out fairly nice that we should only really need to be pumping too much, you know, just to, we're close. I mean, it's 10 meters from the base of that, and we're going up 12 and a little more. So everything is pumped, everything comes up. So once that's produced, everything will come out of the belts or come out of the refineries and head down to the center using all of these little bolt belts, which now the math is, again, pretty simple when you do it this way. Half of the production that's going to come out of that over there is going to get used over here. Half of the production that comes out of here is going to get used over there. So whatever's left, or like I say, more or less, half of the other half is going to be able to be what we're going to get to use. So I've got some test facilities down here. We've got some item sinks that should be able to pull the other half off. Now, the issue, again, like I said, is we're going to use that polymer resin to seed the system, or basically it's going to do what it needs to do to be able to kind of make things happen as it needs to happen. Now there is, I forget exactly what the number was supposed to be, like 160 polymer, 160 plastic and rubber off both sides over here that are going to go back down the line, go across, up, and into these two mergers, which are going to feed this half of this side. So it should seed this half. Once that half produces a whole bunch of rubber, it's going to blast across over there to make a whole bunch of plastic, which will then make a whole bunch of plastic that'll get back over here to turn into rubber and plastic and rubber and plastic and rubber and plastic. This is always going to be here. This little system will basically be, the way that I've got it set up right here, it's going to always feed the first or the second section, these ones right here. I, again, wish there was a priority merger. There is no such animal. It's perfectly fine. Once we get everything sorted, set, and running, what's going to be interesting is this will start feeding into this if it needs to, or it'll go that direction. What we'll end up doing here is I will end up putting a splitter with a priority on it right here that will say if it can continue to go that way, that's perfectly fine. I want to use that rubber and that plastic over here. I don't want it to go anywhere else. So what we're going to do is eventually, once that line backs up, and this line backs up, we're going to put a splitter right on those two lines. I think it's going to be that line, and they will prioritize the output, not the input. So, or however you want to say that's going to work. It's still going to be a problem because of the fact we don't have priority mergers. There's no way to merge priority, as far as I can tell, other than a few other little magical things. But we should be able to at least do the math and pull 160 off of this belt, shove it into another thing. So by the time we're said and done, we're going to have a lot of stuff. So again, like I said, if we come over here, which I should be able to go over here very quickly and easily and grab the number on this. Basically what we're looking at right here, again, is 50 or 82 or 41, well, 82, 41, it's like 50 some odd refineries on both sides. I mean, for that matter, you can do the math. It's simple. It's 7 times 4. It's 28 refineries on both sides that if they were being able to be run full on would be making about 60, whatever that number is. So 28 times 60 is 160 or 1,680. Now, again, we're going to have to get rid of half of that. So 1,680 divided by 2 means we're going to make 840 plus 160. So it's a pretty nice number. I think it's, like I said, it's 160. I believe it's 160. They're both a little different, and this is one of those things that we're going to have to explain down here before we turn this on. I know this is going to be the long part of the episode, so please hang on and bear with me. We're going to have to kind of do some odd math once again, because one side requires 40 and one side requires 60. So we're going to take the total amount of polymer resin from both sides of these two things. I'm going to put a splitter right here so that it splits and goes over that direction and make sure that these stay full once this line fills up. Now, I'm not really concerned about it as far as it working. All we need is a little bitty trickle of plastic and rubber out of these to start this monster. And again, like I said, this is just a third of what we could build over here, because we have another one of those and 2 more over there that can be turned into one of these. So it's simple to turn on, and it should go reasonably quickly. All I should have to do is come down over here, make sure that the power went through the wall like it was supposed to still. We should have a bunch of oil waiting on us right here. Hopefully this still has power. You're powered up. Everything should be powered. All I should have to do is that. There they go. Again, the use all everything kind of thing deal for this system. Of course, I missed a little bit. Fix it quickly. There's always something you forget. Those are going up. All right, so we should now see. Did I get that reasonably straight? No. Love it. All right, the polymer resin is headed over here. Once again, once it gets enough stuff, this is making the plastic. Plastic goes out. And it's going to be a little trickle for a little bit. Then it's going to go over here. More polymer resin comes up. Up to the top. Should have some rubber coming somewhere, right? I hope. I hope. Might need to go check my settings. Into there. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Split, split, split. Again, we're going to have to wait on these to kind of fill up. Why are you on residual rubber? Uh-oh. No, 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 no. You're recycled rubber. Crap. Tell me you guys did the right thing. Okay. So we're waiting on the fuel to get made at this point. All right. As soon as those fill up, we'll be good to go. Let me fix a bunch of refineries real quick. As soon as we get some fuel, these will start making rubber. Here comes the fuel. Bang. It's just, They have a kind of a cool animation, except I don't know we're going to get to see it. Yeah, they do. Okay, they got a little thing going on, and then they do a little bit of this, and then fills the thing, and then throws it in the hole, and then he flings back over there, and it gets thrown at him. We got a little bit coming. There they go, out the door. Down and out the trash can. So once that thing gets filled up, which it may or may not fill up because I think I picked the wrong ones for this, but whatever, it should go. How are we doing on the rubber over here? We got rubber coming? Yes? Okay, cool. I'm gonna do a little bit of making sure everything's sorted, and we should be okay here in a little bit. I think I actually want to adjust this to go over there, looking at what I've got going. I have the tops. Yeah, I need to adjust those. Those need to go over here. So I'm going to fix that real quick. And then we'll see what happens. Well, there may or may not have been a little bit of time in between the last recording or the end of the last recording and this one. But I did go ahead and just say, all right, it's time to do the silliness and get it sorted, because I did have it feeding into the wrong side, so there was no way it would ever get to max capacity. So what's neat about it now, and I know this looks like a mess of things, ignore that belt, and that belt, and that belt. The basic what's going to happen is the resin, or the rubber and the plastic, the ones coming out of the polymer resin things over here, are going to go into this and this merger, those two mergers. There's a splitter right there that runs underneath, and they're going to feed the sides on, well, it's going to feed this half and this half a little bit of plastic, like say on this side. What's going to do then is it's going to come back on, in this situation, it's going to come back on the bottom belts down on the bottom, right there and there. And both of those belts are going to go over to and through a splitter, because these smart splitters right here eventually will be able to pull something off of, but for right now we're not going to be able to. And like, we're not going to be able to pull a lot off of it. It's going to be basically whatever this can produce. So, you know, that's basically all we're going to pull out of there. So when and if we ever need that point, that's where we're going to be able to pull off the excess. Anyhow, that's going to go into that merger right there, and again up to the system over there to be fed. This side comes back down, goes across off to the top. The top goes across over to the other side, dumps into that merger, and feeds the system. So that eventually the outside two lines here on both of these two right here should, well, I should say the outside like lines, basically on, let me see, which side are we looking at here? We'll start over here on this one. Basically the top two lines up here, these ones that head into the system, into those mergers, those two on this side are going to keep this working, and the bottom two lines down there are going to keep that side working, or at least it should, because they run around into these different mergers, into the various areas. They're just flowing themselves back and going around and doing a couple things. So now we should be able to plug it back in and actually watch it work again. It's got a lot of oil in it, so hopefully with a little bit of goofing around, you have plenty of heavy oil residue. See, this is where the problem lies, because if I end up letting things back up too much, we won't make anything, which is not amazing. So now we're backwards here. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to come up here and find one of you guys. Since I thought I was going to get it to work, we now have a whole bunch. Actually, I can just, well, we can flush the heavy oil residue. Yeah, let's just flush it. Screw it. Let's do this. I should be able to, where are you? Just flush that and that, and that, and that, and then it should go back to work. I was gonna say I concede it, but no, we'll just flush some stuff. There we go. There's some stuff. Again, we've seen this kind of work a little bit ago, and we'll try not to make this too terribly long, but this should be the end of it. We've got our plastic coming. I could upgrade those belts a little bit, but that's fine. We're going to go ahead and wait for this to happen. That should take care of a little bit of this. Come on, guys. It'll go bloop, bloop, and go that way. Should. There goes that one. You should go that way. Okay. Those are going to separate and do what they need to do. This should do the same thing over here. Now we're just going to have to wait for the system to kick back on, because I did peel a little bit of the rubber out of it. It had made some. And plastic. That's what all this is for. So I'm going to do that. You can have what you made. And over here they can have the rubber that they made. Because I fed a whole lot into those awesome sinks. Can we float over here, please? I wish this went a little faster sometimes. Here, you can have that. Go ahead. Bang. There goes that plastic. It'll run back across the other side. Here comes some rubber. And away we go. I'm going to let this run a little while, and I will be back once this looks like an absolute nightmare, like it already is. So, oh, did I screw up and forget to connect two things? Yes, I did. Hang on. We do that. Hey, whoa, I don't want that stuff. And that. All right, cool. I will be back in a little bit. That's going to be an ugly long recording, but I think we're getting there slowly but surely. I did figure out we had a little bit of a problem over here, and why we weren't making nearly as much plastic and rubber out of this process as I thought we were is because we had a couple of conveyor belts that for whatever reason did not copy correctly. It didn't put one in down there like it was supposed to, and then for whatever reason when I put those down, they didn't put the conveyors on. So whatever, who cares? We're almost at 100% capacity at this point. We're getting really close. I went ahead and added in the actual takeoff points for where we're going to pull most of the stuff off for the rest of the system, so there should be plenty of places to pull any and all of the things. We've actually got a pretty decent amount headed out of that into this one now, and a pretty decent amount headed out over into these right now too, so we're just gonna let it run. I think we're just gonna let it run. I gotta get a whole lot of that stuff off of that belt because there's a whole lot down there that's gonna have to get processed. It should never look like this when it's running flat out. So we do have a little bit of a backlog that I may have to stem into that, but I think what we'll do is we'll just let it provide the continuous seed of the rest of the thing. It's doing a really good job, at least doing what it needs to do. But yeah, we're getting there. The plastic is backed up this direction, which means that that rubber should be getting to catch up as quickly as it can. And if you look over here on the outside, it's heading back. These guys are, that one's slowed down. This one is catching up. So like I say, it's directly related. The production on one side is directly related to the production on the other. So once one side maxes out, the other side will max out. Why were you yellow? Oh, because you're full of fuel. Good, 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 good. Well, I mean, not good. That just means we've got to whoop some one of these that aren't actually getting rid of everything that it's supposed to be getting rid of, but we're doing all right. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we should be good to go, at least for right now. I'm going to stress test this mess for a while, just to see what it does, but it should work. I mean, logically it works. It's outputting everything that we want. I actually went ahead and figured out that I could add in the last 2 rows that we had on both sides into the mergers, so we now are basically making sure that all of the output from one side is fed into the other side and vice versa until we're full. And if we look, those right there, that's full. That's full. That means if they're filled up here, I shouldn't see anything back here, but I should start to see a lot of this stuff in here fill up, which means very, very, very soon, once I'm happy with the way everything's running, we're going to rip these out. We're going to build a storage system underneath in this little flat area below, and I may move the position of this just a little bit further that direction. But I think for right now, I'm going to call it. That's enough of a mess, and my head hurts enough as it is. This episode is going to be late, probably out tomorrow because of how long this is taking. So, anyhow, I've had a lot of fun. I will probably build the rest of it off camera. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.